Welcome back after a short break. Now we are starting another presentation in our conference. I'm together with Patrick de Kruijf, who is Azure architect at Xebia and Spirit. And now we learn something about how to govern our Azure environment. And Patrick show for us how to deploy policies as using infrastructure as a code and how it looks in the reality. As always, you can write down on our chat the question to the Patrick, and we will have at the end short Q&A session. And don't wait until the end of the presentation. Write them the questions during the presentation. So, Patrick, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Matthias. Welcome all. Welcome to this presentation about how to govern your Azure environment using Azure policies. As Matthias said, my name is Patrick de Kruijf. I'm an Azure architect and I work for Xebia Spirit. And I will take you along with how to set things up, what Azure policies are, how to deploy them using infrastructure as code. So I hope you'll learn from me. As Matthias said, you can ask your questions and I will try to answer them in the meantime. Let's continue. So what I will be doing, I will do a short introduction of myself, which I basically already did. I will talk about the introduction about this talk. And then we're going over a little bit of theory, what is Azure Policy, and then we'll dive right into the environment, doing some stuff, and I'll show you some stuff, and I'll try to explain what I'm doing. After that, there will be a recap and some questions. But once again, if you have some questions during the session, just let us know, and we'll get to that when we can. Introduction. Like I said, my name is Patrick de Kruijf. I work for Xebia Spirit. I've been there for 1.5 years. I'm an Azure architect and our landing zone technology lead. There are some links on the right bottom side where you can find me. So my GitHub handle, LinkedIn page, my own blog, but also my Teams page on our company website. Be sure to follow and reach out to me if you have any questions after this talk as well. I will be talking about the managing and governing your Azure environment using Azure Policy. What I will do is I will show you some ways to create policies and assign policies within different parts of your Azure environment. So without talking too much about the theory or about this topic, I will just dive right into to what is Azure Policies. So what Azure Policy is, it's an Azure service. It's the Azure service that helps you create, assign, and manage your policies within your whole Azure infrastructure. You can use some built-in policies, and the built-in policies are something that Microsoft has delivered and deployed themselves for you to use, and it's quite extensive. So I'll show you a few of them later on in the demo. But the great part is that you can also set up some custom policies, meaning you can create your own policies that suit exactly your needs because Microsoft has generic ones. So that's one of the big powers of using Azure Policy. It will also provide you with a compliance overview, which is very good because how to use your policies or what's the use of your policies if you cannot see the compliance of your policies. So it will be a good overview of how your compliance is set. One thing to keep in mind is that you have two different types of policies. So you have policies, which is a simple single solution to do something, and you have policy initiatives. Initiatives is a combination or a group of different singular policies grouped together. A good example is some built-in policy initiatives are things like the CIS, Center of Information Security, which is grouping a lot of policies together to make sure that you have one compliance overview of your whole scope. ISO 27001 is also one, and there's some more default. Then, how does it actually work? So, excuse me. So whenever you create something, or there's a default evaluation, which is, I think, somewhere around 24 hours, then it will evaluate that policy. So when you create a resource or when the evaluation starts. And what it basically does is very simple. It's doing an if-then scenario. So it will match all of your if conditions, and then it will do something. And that something is an effect. So it will do an effect. The effects, there's multiple effects that you can, which you can use. So you have the disabled one, which is obviously the policy does not do anything, it's just there. Then you have append and modify, which is two different things, but one of them will append something to your resource, for example, a tag. If you deploy something and you want to add something, then you can append something. What you can also do is you can modify some things, saying, okay, there is something wrong in my environment and I don't want to push all of the different deployments. You can create a policy to say, I like to modify this specific thing based on all of the conditions that are set in the if. That's one easy way to modify a lot of resources. Then there's a deny option. And the deny option is basically saying, I want to deploy this, and the policy says, no, you're not allowed to. For example, if you have a policy that says, I do not allow public IPs to be created because I do not want to share anything with the outside world by accident, then you can set up a deny for that specific resource, which is quite powerful in terms of governing your environment, because usually you have a DevOps, all of these DevOps teams that will do something, and you want to be semi in control over the things that you are allowing within your environment. Then you have an audit effect, which is doing nothing but reporting to you what the compliance state is. So what it does, if you have a policy that says do not allow, I don't want to have public IPs deployed, and you set the effect to audit, then you will say, okay, all of the resources and all of the resource groups that are having a public IP address are going to be non-compliant. So that's another way to start setting up your policies to make sure that you have compliancy, but you also do not enforce some things over existing resources yet. Then there's two more, which are similar. It's audit if not exist and deploy if not exist. So what it basically do, if the condition is it does not exist, or is the resource does not exist, or the option or the property on a resource does not exist, then you'll either audit or deploy the thing. So this is a great way to say, for example, if you have log analytics, you're going to say, okay, I always want to have log analytics linked. You can do a deploy if not exist, saying if there's no link for your diagnostic settings of a resource to be linked to a log analytics workspace for the metrics, then we are going to set that for you by this policy, which is a great way, again, to make sure that you're doing some stuff and govern and manage your environment and stay up to date and compliance. Then, of course, in order to do some stuff within Azure, you need to have access. And it's basically using an identity. So for policies, there's if you do a policy assignment, you will get a system managed identity that will be able to do everything in for that policy. But you have to grant that rights on your different resources or management group or subscription or whatever scope that you are going to assign this. So keep that in mind. When assigning a policy that actually does some stuff in Azure, you'll have to add the identity to actually be allowed to do the stuff, if that makes sense for you all. Then you can set remediation tasks, which is a quite nice way to say, if there's a non-compliancy resource, non-compliant resource, I want to remediate this by doing something. This again is using identities and managed identities to perform the actual actions. And another great feature is that you can make exemptions. So whenever there, if you take a built-in policy set from the ISO or the CIS, for example, and they're saying you're non-compliant on a certain resource, but you have mitigated that risk or that compliance on a different level somewhere else, then you can make an exempt saying, this is already done, this is fine, we're in control here, and it will show as compliant. So for your overview, for your compliance overview and your KPIs, you can actually report compliant because you solved that issue some other way. Are there any questions? Because this is the end of the theory, and we will now go into some more practical things. I will show you the Azure portal, etc. I'll give you just a few seconds, and then I'll continue. Well, the questions will get there if there are some. So I will do a live demo now, or actually quite some things. So first of all, is it seeable with the black mode? Because I forgot to change it to the light mode. I will just start off, and when it's when somebody mentioned in the chat that it's not seeable, then I will change it. What you have, this is your Azure policy, or this is your Azure website, your Azure portal. I take it you're all familiar with it. So what you can do in order to get to your policies, your Azure policies, is go to the service policies. What it does here is it will grant you an overview of your scope. You can specify your scope here, and you can do it based on management groups. You can do it on all kinds of things, and also subscriptions and specifically resource groups as well. For this demo, I have created a subscription, one subscription that is basically the basis of our demo. In this overview, you can see that we have an overall compliancy of 100%. And that's simple because there's no policies linked yet. You can actually see which of how much resources are compliant and how much are non-compliant. And again, we have we have resources in this subscription, but we don't have policies to match it to. And what we can now do is let's just see what policies there are. So if you go to the definitions on the left bottom side, then you can see all of your policy definitions. This includes the built-in ones from Microsoft, but it also includes your custom policies. Well, this will take a little while to load. As you will see with a lot of Azure things, it will take a little while to load or to be reflected in the portal. So I will show you some examples in a few moments. When I'm deploying some stuff, it will actually take a while before the portal and the Azure the policy engine knows those changes. You can filter. Not much difference than other parts of the Azure portal. And here you can see again the definitions type. So you have the initiative, which is a set of multiple policies. And then you have a policy, which is a single policy. By default, it will show everything here. Let me close this up a little bit. So these are some built-in policies. There's, as you can see on the bar here, there's a lot of policies here. So be sure to check them out. I have some useful links in the end of my presentation, which you can see all of the well. There's some links to the Azure, the AZ Advertiser, which is all of the policies mapped in a web page from our friends at Microsoft, which is very nice to review some stuff. But you have some built-in policies here. On a lot of different areas. So you have SQL stuff, you have shared image galleries, you have all kinds of stuff. So be sure to check them out before you make your own one, just to make sure that you don't do double work, because there might be a default built-in policy for it. Now let's create a policy ourselves. Let's do it like this. Then I have my Visual Studio Code here, because everything that we do is infrastructure as code. In this case, I'm using Bicep. And what I've done, I've created some Bicep files. I will not assign anything yet. So what it does is I will create a policy in my subscription. and that policy contains some stuff. So I have an array of allowed locations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a policy that will allow only certain locations to be used in our Azure portal or in our for our deployments of resources. It's a custom policy type. There's a policy rule attached to it. Like I said, it's an if then kind of thing. So if all of the things inside my array are true, then I'm going to do my effect. You can also say some of or any of, or so there's some other options here, but for this case, I'm just using the all of. So what we're saying is if the location is not in the list of allowed locations, which I specified in the top here, so North Europe. So if we're deploying something to West Europe, it should not be able to, because our effect is set to deny. So what we will do now is we'll just deploy this. I will talk about policy assignment a little bit later because I first want to do this demo. Okay, maybe I should do it in PowerShell. Sorry about that. Oh, this is weird. There's always the demo gods at work. So what it does, I will show you. It's connecting to my tenant and to a subscription, and then it will do the deployment of my main.bicep file, which is this one. It should take a little while. It's always the most intense waiting time during a talk. This is also a great time because we will do some more deployments after. So this is a great time to ask and answer some questions. So if you have any, feel free to drop them, and I will get them answered as soon as I can. Oh, well, this makes sense. Well, it should have worked. Well, let's do it another way. Just do it by hand. Yeah, this is my bad. Some live troubleshooting at the same time. So I think I fixed it. This is whenever you give a demo or a talk, make sure to not change anything in the structure of your files after it being tested. That's that's all I'm going to say here. It's a lesson learned for well, for me, but hopefully for you guys as well. So it's now deploying something. It will say, okay, my deployment is succeeded. I have done some stuff. It was an incremental deployment. I won't go over all of the details, but it should be succeeded, meaning we should be able to see a new policy here in our definition. So all of our policies and the policies initiatives are mentioned and grouped into our definitions. And again, it will take a little while to refresh all of those. And then we should have a demo allowed locations, and we have deployed it to the subnet. So I haven't talked about it, but you can deploy the policies on a different level, but you have to reference the specific level of your policy whenever you're going to assign it. So in this case, it's a custom policy. When we open it, policies are always in JSON. And what it says here is basically the same as we had defined, saying if all of the values below containing the field is not in your North Europe, then do a deny. So it actually pushes everything from the bicep code directly to this policy. And now that we have a policy, we should be able to assign it as well. So when I'm going back to my infrastructure as code, you probably saw it already in the previous time. I have set a boolean to true or false, just to make sure that I don't have too many files. And what it does is it will do a policy assignment now, but only if the assigned policy is true, which is now true. And what it will do is it will get the outputs of the created policy and use that as the input to do the assignment. So if we look in the assignments, it's as simple as we're doing assignment of a authorization policy assignment with a name and a link to the policy ID. The scope is set in the main bicep in the module. So this whole module will be deployed to the subscription, and therefore it will be assigned to the subscription. So let me just roll this out again. And then you will be able to see what I said earlier about the slowliness of the Azure portal and the Azure Policy Engine to reflect the changes that you make. So we'll have to wait for this deployment to complete. And if you like, just let me know. Then I will be able to share these demo files for you as well. Obviously, without my subscription IDs. But just let me know in the chat somewhere that you would like to have these demo files. Well, as you can see, the deployment is done successfully. And what we should be able to do now is we should be able to see the compliance of the sub 01, which is my subscription. And you can see that they're still 100% compliant. And it's a little bit hard, but there's no compliancy rules. Do it like this. Oh, it actually is. It's already linked, so that's a good thing, because normally it might take a little while. You can see that the compliance state is not started because it's still processing some things, and this will actually take a little while. But what it then does is it will evaluate all of the resources, and it will probably say that a lot of things are in West Europe because that's my default region. But since that we have our policy right now, let's see if it actually works when we deploy something to it. So I have another deploying a resource group to West Europe, just as a test, because I'm not allowing West Europe to be deployed to in my policy for this subscription. So what I will do is I will just start this deployment. Yep. And then it should throw an error. Well, the first error is a generic error saying there is something wrong, I'm not able to do this. But if you look at the error down below, it's probably really hard to see on with the red letters on black, but what it says is request disallowed by the policy. The message was the resource rg-demo, which is our resource here, was disallowed by the policy. and it will link the policy to you, and then it will just say the deployment failed because I'm not able to do any of the deployments that you want to do. So this is effectively the policy with a deny effect, denying you to do anything, right? So you can make it as wild as you would like for your specific needs, saying if there's a combination of stuff, for example, if you have a storage account, then you should always have HTTPS enabled, it should never have a private endpoint, etc. You can map all of those things together in your condition, and then you can do an action. So you can also do a deploy if not exist, saying I want to add something to this deployment. I have not made any other demo than this simple demo. So I am ready for a recap, but if you would like to ask some stuff or see some stuff here specifically, now is the time to reach out to us in the chat. I'll give you a few moments. I'm not seeing any questions coming in. Then again,
no question for you.
Okay, great. Then let's go to a recap. I think we're going quite fast and quite well on time. So what we have learned now, what I tried to explain to you and have you learn, is that Azure Policy provides you with options to manage and govern your environment, right? So the policies are actually a very strong component that you can use to audit things, so you can see and report to non-compliancy without teams being affected, but you can also steer some resources and the creation of those to a certain way that you would want to have your platform set up. You can see your compliancy status, and you can add remediation tasks to non-compliant resources. I could, if you like, add an exemption as a quick demo after. So I will give you the time to say if you would like to see that. If not, we'll see how the time goes. You have the ability to add your own custom policies based on your specific needs. That's one of the key things that is making it good for me as a cloud architect to say, okay, there are some things that we would like. There are some requirements from customers that say, I want to have it in a certain way. I want to allow or disallow certain things, and Azure Policy is a great way to do that. So it can be tailored to your specific needs, which is quite powerful. And what I've shown you is how to deploy some custom policies. It's a fairly simple one, but the mechanic is the same, and how to assign policies. You can also assign them in the portal, but as we're probably all aware, is that DevOps and infrastructure as code is easier to maintain and more fail-safe later on. But for your testing purposes, you can also try to assign a policy directly in the Azure portal. That is concluding my talk right now. So if you would like to see some additional things like setting an exemption, I think we have the time for that. And if not, I have a few minutes more for any other questions that you might have.
Okay, that's right, Patrick. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I see. Question to you: what's the best way to deploy the policies?
The best way, yeah. So whenever you have some policies, what I generally do is I'm just mapping them in Bicep, like I did here in this in this one. I'll just map them and just keep them growing. What I always do is I'm deploying them using infrastructure as code, so it can also be Terraform or Bicep or Pulumi or whichever one you prefer. But what I generally do is I deploy something to a small scope, just testing it out, fine-tuning it, always on an effect of audit, because I would only want to see what happens, what are the non-compliancy, etc. Then I'm going to release it to a bigger scope. And the bigger scope is usually a management group with multiple subscriptions under it, with audit only. Then I would see what the effect will be. And then when that's all mitigated, counted, etc., then I will deny a certain thing. Does that answer the question of the person asking it?
Okay, and I don't see any more question to you. So if you need a few minutes for another summary, you can do this.
Yeah. So what I then would like to share, because it's not in my original slide. I will just unhide it. Oh, it's not even hidden, so that's even better. So there are some resources that are useful here. So the AZ advertiser, I'll just open it up real quick, is basically all of the policy initiatives that are standard in Azure. So you can see lots of things. You can search for policies. You can see changes. This is a great way to see, do I need to create or build my custom policy, or can I just use one policy? Another great thing is that you can also have different policies linked together in an initiative, like I explained earlier, because if that would make your custom policy irrelevant, because you can match parts of different built-in policies. That's another great way, because Microsoft will keep these up to date as well. And you can always see some stuff here. Then we have the other link, which is a repository of all of the Azure policies from Azure itself, so not made by me. And there are quite some samples in here about all of different kind of things that you are able to use. For example, if you take a resource group, you can do audit on tags, resource logs, etc., etc. So there's different things here. These are all in JSON, but you can rebuild them in Bicep, or what you can also do is just import them, like load a JSON text into your Bicep. I won't talk about that too much, because that's for another type of session. But you can actually see a lot of different things here that Azure supplies by default, that you can just copy and adjust for your own custom policies as well. And these are just great samples to get to know how things are working as well. See if there's something else here. Oh, some actually have a PowerShell script to deploy some stuff. And this is an example of what I said earlier. There's all different kinds of things. So you can do within your if, you can basically go use all of the combinations possible. So what it does is, if any of all of these things, so this is a group, all of these should be true, then it will be true. All of these should be true, and then it is true. And what it says is, if any of all of the combinations are saying true, then I'm going to do something. So that just shows how powerful Azure policies can be for managing and governing your environment. And then, other than specific questions, I don't have any other things to show in such a short amount of time, because I think it's almost 35 minutes.
That's right. We are slightly running out of time. So I will say only thank you very much, Patrick, for your presentation once again, and thank you very much for all of you for participating in this slot, in this talk. And of course, your feedback is very important for us. So please rate Patrick's presentation using stars under the video player. Thank you very much, and see you after short break.
Yes. Thank you all. Have a nice day.